"Kill the child," Marcus said very softly, right in the middle of the old factory, where a 5-year-old was breathing her final breaths. He was not angry, not hesitant. To him, a child's heart is fragile. Slow it down for a few minutes, and it's over. Everything becomes clean again. The father knelt on the concrete floor, his hands stained with his child's blood, and for the first time understood that this system does not need the truth. It only needs one more corpse to keep running. Just a moment later, another hand touched the screen. No pleading, no negotiation, a data package was sent out, cold and irreversible. Reputation, stock value, and an entire multi-million-dollar empire began to collapse at the same time, without a single gunshot being fired. The person who pressed that button was not an outsider. Elena Voss, CEO of Novatech, daughter of the founder, someone who had spent years surviving by covering up dirty decisions, chose to expose the entire system, fully aware she would lose everything just to stop one more child from dying on a factory floor. If you were Alex, would you bow to the system so your child could keep breathing? If this part made you uncomfortable, subscribe to the channel now. Leave a comment and tell me what you would choose. I don't believe any of us are clean when faced with this decision. The afternoon dragged on as if being pulled backward. The fluorescent lights in the supermarket cast a pale white layer over everything, making everyone's face look sleep-deprived. Alex pushed the cart close to the edge of the shelves, trying to avoid the dense flow of people pressing toward the checkout. The wheels squeaked every time he changed direction, a small sound but enough to give him a headache. Lily sat in the cart, her thin body pressed against the plastic side, both hands clutching her father's shirt as if afraid of falling. Her breathing was uneven, each inhale and exhale carrying a very faint wheeze, but to Alex, it sounded like metal scraping against metal. "Dad, my chest hurts." Lily's voice was thin, broken, as if every word had to ask her lungs for permission before coming out. Alex stopped immediately, bent down to her eye level, one hand gripping her shoulder tightly so she would not slide. "Look at me. Look at me." He spoke slowly, each word falling as if carefully placed. "Breathe with me." Slowly, he inhaled deeply, held for a beat, then exhaled. Lily tried to follow, her lips trembling, eyes wide with fear more than pain. Alex straightened up and continued pushing the cart. He was used to having to do two things at once, moving forward while watching every small change on his daughter's face. The dairy shelf came into view. He reached out and took a carton, checked the price, paused, then put it back. He took another carton, $2 cheaper, nearly the same ingredients, and a shorter expiration date. "We'll take this one, okay?" He spoke as if apologizing before she could object. "Just bear with it a little." Lily did not answer, only nodded very slightly, as if even the nod cost her energy. He checked the list again, in his mind. Medicine, rice, and a few other essentials to get through the week. Each item placed into the cart carried its own weight, not because it was heavy, but because it pushed the number in his head higher. When the cart was just full enough, Alex turned toward the checkout. The line was long, and everyone was looking irritated. Lily coughed sharply, her body curling inward. Alex placed a hand on her back, rubbing steadily, eyes fixed ahead. The scanner sounds rang out in a steady rhythm. Beep, 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 like a countdown clock. He felt his throat dry with each sound. When it was his turn, Alex placed each item onto the conveyor belt. Lily lowered her head, breathing hard. He leaned down close to her ear. "Almost done." He said it, not sure whether he was speaking to her or to himself. At that moment, a leather wallet fell to the floor, slid a short distance, then stopped right beside the toe of his shoe. The sound was not loud, but enough to catch his attention. The woman standing in front turned slightly. She wore a simple coat, her hair neatly tied, with no sign of being in a hurry. She did not bend down right away. She stood still, as if waiting. Alex bent down and picked up the wallet, the leather cold in his hand. He raised it to chest level and held it out to her, his eyes not meeting hers. "Yours." His voice was even, without curiosity. The woman took it, her fingers closing very quickly. "Thank you." She said it briefly, adding nothing. Her gaze swept over him for a second, then returned forward. There was no polite smile, no awkwardness of someone who had just dropped something. The cashier continued scanning Alex's items. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He already knew what it was. but his heart still tightened. He pulled the phone out, the screen showing a medication reminder. The remaining time was displayed in red numbers. He looked at Lily, her face paler than before, her lips dry. He looked back at the conveyor belt, where the woman's items were still unpaid. He said nothing, did not ask, did not weigh it. He only handed over his card when the cashier asked, "Do you want to pay for this part as well?" The question landed like a routine. Alex nodded. Yeah, a short answer, firm, as if saying one more word would make him change his mind. The card machine made another sound, longer. The screen lit up, $50. The number sat there, unmoving. Alex swallowed, feeling something stuck in his throat. He looked at the screen, then turned to Lily. "I should have," he started, then stopped. "Never mind." He slid the card back into his wallet, the movement faster than necessary. The woman standing beside him looked at the number. She did not ask, did not show surprise. Her eyelids did not blink. Her gaze looked more like noting a fact than witnessing an action. The cashier handed over the receipt, and Alex took it, his hand slightly shaking. He pushed the cart aside, trying not to block the people behind him. Lily coughed again, longer this time. Alex bent down, patted her back lightly, whispering a few unfinished words. The woman had already taken her bags and walked ahead. Alex pushed the cart after her, far enough not to touch, but close enough for him to see her back among the crowd. At the exit, the security gate beeped as another customer passed, then fell silent. Alex paused for a beat, adjusted Lily's jacket, pulling the zipper higher to cover her neck. He thought about the money just spent, thought about the medicine not yet bought, thought about how he would manage tonight. The thoughts ran side by side, none willing to give way to the others. When he stepped through the doors, cold air rushed in, making Lily shiver. Alex bent over to shield her, pushing the cart faster. The woman had gone a few steps ahead, then slowed. She turned back and stepped across his path. The moment was so brief that Alex only managed to look up by reflex. She did not look at Lily, did not look into the cart. She looked straight at his face, her expression calm to the point of cold. "Have you been living like this? Long?" The question fell very softly, like placing a period in the middle of the moving crowd. Alex opened his mouth, but no sound came out in time. He stood there, one hand still gripping the side of the cart. When he managed to turn his head again, the woman had already merged into the crowd outside the doors, leaving no sign to distinguish her from the other backs. All that remained was Lily's breathing close to his ear, steady but weak, and the number, $50, 00, repeating in his head like an uneven heartbeat. Alex pushed the cart out of the supermarket doors, the automatic glass sliding shut behind him with a dry, sighing sound. The air outside was colder than he expected. A light rain fell, fine drops slanting with the wind, tapping softly against the metal canopy of the parking lot. Lily curled inward in the cart, her chin touching her chest, her breathing shallow and tired. Alex bent down, pulled her collar higher, his hands trembling slightly while he still tried to make everything look normal. "I'm here," he said, his voice low and steady, as if soothing someone who had heard those words every day. "Look at me." Lily lifted her head, her eyes dulled with exhaustion. Alex did not wait. He lifted her out of the cart, the lightness of Lily's body making him feel more afraid than sad. He placed her in the back seat, threaded the seatbelt across her, and clicked it in place with 2 tries because his hand slipped. "All set," he said, even though the strap was still slightly twisted. Lily leaned her head against the seat back, her lips more purple than before. "I'm sleepy." The words drifted out slowly, almost dissolving halfway. Alex leaned into the car, held her chin firmly so it would not drop. "No," his voice was harsh, sharper than he intended. "Look at me. You can't sleep." Lily blinked several times, trying to keep her eyes open, her gaze drifting away and then returning to her father's face. Alex closed the car door and hurried around to the driver's seat. The door slam sounded too loud in the damp space. He tossed the grocery bags onto the passenger seat, shoved the key into the ignition, and twisted hard. The engine hesitated for a beat before starting. That was when he saw it. A black sedan at the far end of the lot, parked at an angle compared to the others, headlights off. It did not move right away. It sat there, as if watching. Alex checked the rearview mirror, then looked straight ahead. He told himself he was imagining things. The lot was wide, people coming and going, and a black car meant nothing. He eased the car forward, slowly, avoiding puddles. When he turned toward the main exit, the sedan also began to move. Slow, matching his pace, not rushing, but not drifting away. Alex's heart beat harder. He rolled up the window, gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He glanced at the mirror again. The distance stayed the same. The black car crawled behind him, not passing, not falling back. A thought flashed through his mind, sharp as a blade. Then he pushed it away. He sped up a little. The sedan sped up as well. He was preparing to turn onto the main road when tires screeched behind him, a short, sharp sound. Before Alex could react, a heavy impact slammed into the side of his car. The whole body jolted. The sedan surged forward, scraping across him, metal grinding like tearing fabric. A violent pull threw Alex off balance for a moment. His left leg smashed into the door frame, pain flaring. Then a warm wetness spread quickly. Damn it! The curse burst out before he could swallow it. Lily screamed from the back seat. The scream was high, broken, tearing through the cramped space. "Dad!" Alex clenched his teeth, slammed the brake, then the gas. The car fishtailed, but did not stall. Before he could process what had just happened, a dry crack rang out. Not loud, not echoing, but enough to make his ears ring for a moment. A round hole appeared in the rear window, cracks spreading outward like a spiderweb. Alex did not think. He floored the gas. The car shot forward, tires slipping on wet concrete. The black sedan clung behind him, as if tied by an invisible rope. Lily sobbed, her breathing rapid. "Dad hurts," she said, her voice tangled with crying. Alex did not turn around. "I'm okay," he answered quickly like a reflex. "Keep your head straight. I'm driving." End quote. He reached for his phone, put it on speaker, and dialed 911. His left hand held the wheel. His right shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. The call connected, but the sound felt like it was coming from underwater. The dispatcher's voice warped, cutting in and out. Alex spoke fast, words piling over each other. Parking lot, gun, a child. He was not sure how much they heard. The signal faltered. The call dropped. A message appeared immediately after. The screen lit up for a moment. A short line of text. No sender name. "Don't stop." Alex shuddered. A cold rush ran down his spine, unrelated to the rain. He looked at the road ahead, then glanced at the mirror. The sedan was still there, closer, he muttered, his voice breaking in his throat. "Impossible. No one could be tracking us." His left leg throbbed with every press of the clutch. Blood soaked through his pants, smeared onto the seat cushion. He clenched his teeth, focused on the road. His car burst onto the main street, with heavier traffic, at a red light ahead. He slowed, checked on Lily, in the mirror. She coughed violently, her body folding inward, her hands gripping the seatbelt. On the phone mounted on the dash, the heart rate app showed the number dropping. Alex stared at that number longer than he should have. Each drop felt like a punch straight into his chest. He knew that if he stopped, he could lift Lily out, call for help, and wait for an ambulance. He also knew the sedan behind him would not disappear. The light stayed red. Horns blared behind him, impatient, angry. Alex took a deep breath, then drove through the light. The sedan followed immediately, not a beat slower. In the mirror, he saw it close enough that its headlights reflected clearly off his own trunk. Lily coughed again, long and heavy. Alex kept both hands on the wheel, the surface slick with sweat and blood. He said nothing more. No reassurance would be strong enough now. There was only the engine's roar, the rain hammering the glass, and a single thought repeating in his mind, sharp and cold. If he stopped to save his child, they would catch up. Alex did not try to get ahead. He only tried to stretch things out. Every second that passed had a cost, and he paid with sweat, with blood soaking through his pant leg, with concentration torn into pieces. The car tore through a sharp curve, the body shaking violently. He clenched his teeth, ripped a strip of fabric from the hem of his t-shirt, and hurriedly wrapped it around his calf. The cloth soaked red almost immediately. He lowered his head and spoke short, firm, decisive. "Don't look. Stay low, Lily." The child curled inward, her back pressed tight against the seat, both hands trembling as they clutched the seatbelt. Lily cried in broken bursts, the sound compressed by shallow breaths. "I'm scared. I'm scared," Alex cut in, his voice hoarse, neither loud nor gentle. "Scared or not, you have to breathe. I need you to breathe." He inhaled deeply, exhaled evenly, trying to turn his own breathing into something she could cling to. In the mirror, Lily's eyes were wet, wide open, forcing themselves to stay awake. He glanced down at the phone resting on the console. The route was clear, the blue dot blinking. A thought snapped up, sharp and fast. He shut off the GPS and threw the phone onto the car floor like tossing away a watching eye. The screen faced down, slid under the seat. At the same time, he yanked the wheel hard, turning into a narrow side street riddled with potholes. The car bounced. Lily let out a small cry. Alex tightened his grip on the wheel, lips pressed thin. The side street ran through an old residential area, where Alex had lived for more than 10 years. Low fences, familiar steps, turns he could take at night without headlights. He sped up just enough, not letting the engine stall, not letting the tires slip too long. He thought he had cut a corner. Then, the lights appeared again in the mirror. The black sedan was still there, distance unchanged. Cold ran down Alex's spine. It can't be a coincidence. It can't. The words slipped out like a reality check. He pushed past the gas station on the corner, white light spilling across wet concrete. The thought of stopping flashed through his mind, calling out, shouting, begging for help. He looked at the mirror. The sedan slowed in perfect sync, waiting at the edge of the light, as if expecting him to step out. Alex swore, his voice breaking. "What do you want?" The question flew out the window, dissolved into the rain, unanswered. The signal ahead turned yellow, then red. Alex slowed by reflex, then stopped halfway. He looked left, looked right, measured the gap, then went through. Horns blared behind him, urgent, angry. He did not look back. Lily murmured weakly, her voice thin. "Dad hurts." Alex slammed his hand against the steering wheel, the sound dry. "I hurt too, but I can still drive." The words sounded like a promise he had just bound himself to keep. He turned twice more, cut through a short alley, then merged back onto a main road. Each turn, the sedan stayed tight, not a beat slow. Alex realized the tailing rhythm did not depend on the driver's eyes. It felt like a prediction. He changed lanes, and the black car changed with him. He slowed, and the black car slowed. A cold logic ran through his head, lines of old code resurfacing. Data, location, habits. He no longer doubted. They were tracking him through data. He hunched lower, checked the dashboard. Warning lights flickered. His left leg stabbed with pain every time he pressed the clutch. Blood made the pedal slick. He had to adjust pressure, hold the rhythm. Lily coughed violently, folding inward. Alex tilted his head and spoke briefly. "Keep your neck straight." She obeyed, slow and stiff. He looked at the heart rate number on the old app. He still remembered the password too. The number dropped, then rose, dropped, then rose. He counted in his head, afraid to say it aloud. He chose a longer side road, more curves, fewer cameras. He remembered every pothole, every low-hanging branch. The car tore through, body shaking hard, metal striking plastic with sharp sounds. The sedan still followed, headlights cutting through rain, reflecting off the rear glass. Alex tilted his head and murmured, "Not meant for anyone to hear. Every system has latency." He needed that latency. He braked hard, swerved abruptly into a one-way street, going the wrong direction. The car behind braked too, tires screeching long. The distance stretched for a beat. Alex exhaled, short. Then, the gap closed. The black car returned to its exact position. The pursuit rhythm was like a taut string, pulling him back onto the same path. A truck blocked the end of the side road because of construction. Warning lights flashed. Temporary barriers stood crooked. Alex hit the brakes, tires sliding, the car spinning slightly. He held the wheel, stopped a short distance from the barrier. In front of him was a metal wall. Behind him, the glare of headlights pressed close. The black sedan appeared right behind, close enough that he could clearly see the driver's face through the windshield, flat, focused. The sedan's rear window rolled down. An arm extended out. The barrel of a gun lifted, black, round, aimed straight at them. Alex turned to look at Lily. The child's eyes were open, terrified, but she was still breathing. He placed his hands on the steering wheel, holding it steady. Rain pounded the glass, a steady thudding sound. The space ahead closed in. He knew he had run out of room to turn. The screen in front of Elena was split into many small frames, each one a different angle. The muddy lot behind the residential area appeared blurred by rain, streetlights spilling down in long, trembling streaks. Alex appeared in a central frame, delayed from real time by several dozen seconds. He was carrying Lily in his arms, his body leaning forward, each heavy step sinking into the soft ground. Rain struck his face directly, ran along the bridge of his nose, and dripped onto the child's clothes. Elena watched without blinking. The pen in her hand was clenched so tightly her fingertips turned white. The control room was unnaturally quiet. The air conditioning hummed steadily, the wind through the vents sounding like mechanical breathing. An assistant stood nearby, keeping just enough distance, voice lowered. "Do you want to call the police?" The question was posed like a technical option, stripped of emotion. Elena did not turn around. "If the police come, it's over for everyone." Her voice was tight, final, cutting across a chain of thoughts moving too fast. On the screen, Alex slipped, nearly collapsing, then caught his balance at the last moment. Lily clung to his neck, her head slumped against his shoulder, her chest rising and falling irregularly. Elena closed her eyes for a very brief beat, then opened them. She set the pen on the desk, stood up, and pulled on her coat. "I'm going out," she said, not needing confirmation. The building's parking lot was darker than she expected. Rain coated the windshield in a thin film. Elena opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. The smell of new leather mixed with the familiar scent of metal. She started the engine, and the car rolled onto the road. She kept her distance, far enough to avoid any camera Alex might notice, close enough not to lose him. Her face was calm, as if heading to a late meeting. "I just need the hard drive," she murmured, like a reminder to herself, if it still exists. The phone on the mount vibrated. Victor was calling. Elena answered, eyes still on the road. "The target is panicking." Victor's voice was even, dry, carrying no tension. "There's a child with him." Elena was silent for a beat. In her mind, the image of her brother lying in a hospital bed surfaced, the breathing tube trembling slightly with each breath. "Track him," she said. "Don't make a scene." She hung up before Victor could reply. Her car flowed with traffic, not passing, not slowing. She glanced at the secondary screen, where the live feed kept running. Alex was back in the car, the black sedan tight behind him. She saw the impact, saw Alex's car lurch, saw Lily scream. The mental notes in her head began breaking apart into scattered lines. She picked up her phone, fingers moving quickly through secure apps. An anonymous messaging channel opened. Victor called again. This time, his voice was different, as if he were smiling. "What do you mean? Don't make a scene." Elena held the steering wheel straight, voice lowered. "If he reacts abnormally," she paused for a beat, enough to give the words weight. "Handle it." When she finished, her chest tightened, like she had swallowed something hard. She ended the call, her hand trembling slightly. On the screen, Lily coughed violently, her head dropping before Alex lifted it again. Elena felt a sharp pain pass through her chest. Old memories surfaced, sharp and cold. The hospital room, the smell of disinfectant, the steady beep of the heart monitor slipping off rhythm. Her brother had breathed like that too, each breath seeming to be pulled from deep inside. "Not this," she murmured, eyes fixed on the screen. "Not like this." The words dissolved into the sound of rain drumming on the car roof. Elena merged back into the lane, keeping a steady speed. She typed a quick message, unsigned, sent through the channel she had just opened. "Turn right, don't go to the main road." Her finger hovered over the screen for a beat, then dropped. The message was sent. She looked back at the feed. The image was still delayed. Alex was braking hard before an intersection, the sedan pressing close behind. She knew this delay, every second, capable of redirecting a life. She glanced at the clock on the dashboard. Time dragged. "The fee has been updated." Alex had already passed that turn, gone straight. The message arrived too late. Elena gripped the steering wheel, her nails digging into her skin. She pressed the gas a little more, trying to close the distance. On the feed, the black sedan accelerated. The space ahead of Alex collapsed faster than she had predicted. Victor called again. Elena answered immediately, her voice tense. "Stop," she said, without circling it. On the other end, Victor let out a dry laugh. "You said handle it," he replied, his voice cold as steel. Elena half rose from her seat, even as she drove. "Stop!" she shouted, the word tearing free of control, mixing with the rain and engine noise. She heard only wind hissing through the microphone, then a very familiar metallic sound, the click of a gun being chambered. The call ended. Elena slammed the brakes, her car jerking to a stop at the roadside. She breathed hard, her hands no longer able to hide their shaking. On the screen, the feed updated. The black sedan had forced forced Alex into a dead end. She saw the barrel lift, black and round, filling the frame. The image froze for a beat, as if the system itself were hesitating. She stared at the screen, her mind emptied. Everything she had held onto, weighed and delayed, now collapsed into a single point before her eyes. The phone in her hand vibrated, signaling weak reception. She did not look. In her ears, the sound of the gun being chambered echoed again, so clear it drowned out even the rain. Alex pulled the car tight to the curb, the tires scraping lightly against the edge of the sidewalk. The engine shut off, leaving an abrupt silence, as if someone had just slammed a door shut. The rain kept falling, fine and persistent, soaking into his clothes before he even registered the cold. He opened the back door and lifted Lily out, her body so light it made his chest tighten. His left leg dragged by instinct, the torn wound rubbing against wet fabric, the blood spreading darker. He held Lily tight to his chest and pushed the cafe door open with his shoulder. The smell of hot coffee mixed with freshly baked bread rushed out, warm enough to make him dizzy for a beat. The cafe was not crowded. A few people scattered around. The clink of spoons against cups, soft and uneven. Alex moved quickly to the counter, his voice coming out like an order. "A cup of warm water, fast." The server looked at him, looked at Lily, and nodded without asking anything. Alex pulled the nearest chair closer, sat Lily down, and kept a hand on her so she would not slide. Lily leaned her head against her father's shoulder, her eyes dull, her lips pale. "Dad, I'm cold." Her voice was thin like steam. Alex took off his jacket, wrapped it around Lily, and pulled it tight up to her neck. His lips pressed together, his jaw tense. "Cold or not, you have to live." The words came out before he could soften them. He rested his forehead against her hair for a second, then lifted his head and scanned the cafe. He pulled the medicine bottle from his pocket, his hand shaking more than it had in the car. The cap was slick from rain and sweat. He twisted, slipped, twisted again. When the cap popped free, his heart pounded. The cafe door opened. The wind chime above it stirred softly. A woman stepped inside, dark raincoat, hair neatly tied. She paused for a beat, her gaze sweeping the room, then stopping exactly on Alex. That look was not rushed, not curious, as if she were confirming a location. She walked to the counter and ordered coffee in an even voice, familiar with the place. Alex bent over Lily, placed the pill on her tongue, careful as if setting down something fragile. The cup of warm water was set on the table. He poured small sips, held it to her lips. Lily drank with difficulty, pausing after each swallow to breathe. Alex held the cup with both hands, his eyes never leaving her. The woman took her coffee and moved closer. "Are you okay?" The question was light, set at the right distance. Alex did not answer. He poured more water, tilted the cup so Lily could drink again. When she finished swallowing, he set the cup down and looked up for the first time. His eyes met hers, closer than in the supermarket, close enough to see the cold focus behind her calm. "You followed me from the store," he said, his voice dry. The woman took a sip of coffee and set the cup down. "Do you think someone has that much free time?" The answer came straight, without dodging. Alex let out a short laugh, humorless. "I don't think," he said, leaning his body to block Lily from her view. "I know." Lily leaned into him, her eyes closing and opening again, her breathing still heavy. The woman watched the movement, her gaze dropping to the blood soaking through Alex's pants. For the first time, the certainty on her face slackened. She pulled a chair over and sat across from him, keeping just enough distance. "I just want to make sure you don't do something stupid." Her voice lowered, more warning than concern. Alex clenched his teeth, his voice rough. "Stupid is letting my child die because of people like you." A silence fell between them. The coffee machine hissed behind the counter, steam releasing in steady bursts. Lily let out a faint groan, and Alex immediately bent down, rubbing her back in a familiar rhythm. "Drink a little more," he said, gentler. Lily shook her head very slightly. Alex did not force it, placed his hand on her chest, counted the beats. The woman observed, did not interrupt. When Lily steadied a little, she spoke again, very softly, like a confession that refused to name itself. "You didn't bring that thing with you, did you?" Alex looked straight at her, no thought required. "I'm not that stupid." The answer was quick, final. She nodded almost imperceptibly, as if confirming an assumption. Alex studied her, trying to piece together the fragments in his head. The way she spoke, the way she stood in the supermarket, the way the black car followed. "Who are you?" he asked, not raising his voice. She did not answer right away. She took another sip of coffee and set the cup down slowly. Someone who doesn't want this to go too far. The words hung there, enough to avoid being an introduction. Too far for who? Alex asked. She looked at Lily, then back at him. For everyone, she said. Alex tightened his grip. My child is not a number, he said, each word heavy. She nodded. I know. This time her voice was less certain. Lily shifted and opened her eyes. Dad, she called weakly. Alex bent down immediately. I'm here, he said, his forehead touching hers. The woman stood up and straightened her raincoat. You need to take her on, she said, like stating something obvious. Alex looked at her sharply. You think I don't know that? She took a step away, then stopped. Someone else is following you, she said, without turning around. They're not patient. Alex drew a deep breath. Then what are you in this? She turned back and met his eyes. Someone is trying to keep order. The answer did not ease him. He stood up and lifted Lily, pain flaring in his leg. She watched him, her gaze lingering on his uneven walk. You won't get out by running, she said. Alex paused for a beat, did not turn around. I just need my child to breathe, he replied. He stepped toward the door, the rain striking his face again. Before leaving completely, he turned back. What do you want from me? She stood there, the cafe lights washing her face back into calm. What you hid away, she said. So everything stops. Alex smiled faintly. Everything of yours or mine? She did not answer. Alex pushed the door open and went out. Lily pressed her face into his neck, cold. He moved quickly toward the car. When he set Lily into the back seat, his hands shook more than before. He buckled the seatbelt and checked the latch twice. As he walked around to the front, he saw it. Outside the cafe window, under the awning, a figure stood in the rain, motionless. The streetlight cast down, hiding the face. Only a straight posture was visible, hands tucked inside a coat. The figure did not move, as if waiting. Alex looked at the figure through the glass, then back toward the cafe. The woman was still standing there, her gaze also directed outside. Their eyes met for a brief beat. Alex closed the car door, his hand resting on the steering wheel, his heart pounding. The figure outside took one step forward, rain sliding off the shoulders. Alex knew this moment had locked into place, and that everything ahead would leave no room left for hesitation. Alex carried Lily out to the car, his steps short and quick, his eyes darting constantly like a habit formed in just a few short hours. He set her into the back seat, adjusted her position so her back was firmly supported, his hand touching Lily's forehead, colder than it had been at the cafe. Stay in the car, he said, his voice low and fast. I'm locking the doors. Don't open them for anyone. Lily nodded very slightly, eyes wide, trying to stay alert. Alex closed the door and hit the lock, the click of the latch sounding like a fragile promise. He moved around to the driver's seat, sat down, and let out a long breath. His hands slid on the steering wheel from sweat and leftover rain. Lily tilted her head, looking at him through the gap between the seats. Are we going home, Dad? The question was small, tentative. Alex did not turn around, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. We're going somewhere with doctors, he answered evenly, trying to keep the words from shaking. The car rolled forward. Alex chose back routes, avoiding main roads, avoiding places he knew had cameras. Each time he turned, he checked the mirrors, searching for familiar headlights. They disappeared, then reappeared at a greater distance. He was not sure whether it was imagination or reality, so he kept driving, holding a speed just low enough not to draw attention. Lily coughed softly, then leaned her head against the seat, her breathing heavy but steadier than before. Alex glanced at the heart rate number, counted silently, matching it to each breath. At one cross street, Alex spotted the familiar car parked farther away, lights off. His heart tightened, then eased when he passed without anything happening. He told himself to focus on the destination. The hospital came into view after a turn, white lights spilling across a wide parking lot. Alex turned in, searching for a spot as close to the entrance as possible. A few rows away, Elena sat in another sedan, windows up. She watched through a screen, the image slightly delayed. When Alex shut off the engine, she lifted her phone. I said stop. Her voice was hard, leaving no room for compromise. Victor answered immediately, short, Too late. She tightened her grip on the phone, watched Alex lift Lily out of the car. Anandar hurried toward the hospital doors. A heavy feeling pressed against her chest. Not quite fear, not quite anger. Alex had only taken a few steps when his phone vibrated. He stopped and looked at the screen. A notification from the hospital system appeared. The appointment moved to an earlier time slot and a different room. He hesitated for a beat, his eyes scanning the details. One part of him was wary, the other saw opportunity. Earlier, when a doctor was ready, Lily would be examined immediately. He turned, changed direction, and headed toward the east parking area, where the new clinic room was closer. He placed Lily back into the rear seat, buckled the seatbelt, and checked the latch. "I'm going to get the medicine bag," he said, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Stay put." Lily nodded, her eyes tired but trusting. Alex closed the door, locked it, then bent down to pick up the medicine bag that had slipped off the passenger seat, the bottle rolling onto the floor. He turned his back just once, bent down, and reached. The moment passed so quickly that he did not register any other sound. When he straightened up, a hollow feeling hit before any thought. He turned back. The back seat was empty. The seatbelt hung loose, swaying very slightly. No crying, no breathing. Only the smell of disinfectant and damp rain mixed. "Lily?" Alex called, his voice hoarse. He opened the back door and looked inside, his hands shaking. "Lily!" He ran away from the car, scanning the parking lot. Foot traffic was sparse, and a few curious glances turned toward him. He ran to the next row of cars, calling louder. "Lily? Where are you?" His voice broke, uncontrolled. A man stopped and stared at him, as if witnessing something incomprehensible. A woman pulled her small child closer and moved aside. Alex ran around the car, bent to look underneath, opened the opposite door, then rushed back again. Every movement was frantic, fragmented. He slammed his hand against the roof, the dry sound echoing. "Lily!" he shouted, his throat burning. All other noise seemed to fall away, leaving only the pounding of his heart. His phone vibrated in his hand. A new message appeared. No sender name, the same cold lettering as before. "Come alone. If not, the girl dies." Alex stood frozen in the middle of the parking lot, eyes locked on the screen. Blood from his leg kept dripping, seeping onto the concrete, spreading into a faint stain. He did not hear someone calling out behind him. He did not feel the rain that had begun falling again. In his mind, everything collapsed into a single point, and that point had just been pulled out of reach. The iron gate opened with a long screech, the sound stretching through the space as if pulled thin. Alex stopped the car a few dozen meters away, stepped out, the rain lighter now, but the ground still wet and cold. In front of him stood the old gray building, its dark windows like hollow eye sockets. He raised both hands to chest level, palms open, and walked slowly toward the door. "I'm here." His voice was hoarse, partly carried away by the wind. "Give me my child back." The door closed behind him with a heavy sound, like the final lock on a one-way path. The smell of old chemicals spilled out, sharp and damp, clinging to his throat. Loose fluorescent lights on the ceiling flicked on one by one, flickering. Alex looked around, walls stained with watermarks, faded warning signs still hanging in the corridors. He recognized the place, not through clear memory, but through the familiar feeling of hallways he had walked during system inspections many years earlier. Back then, there were people, machines, and report boards covering the walls. Now, there was only the echo of his own footsteps. "You got here faster than I expected." The voice came from deeper inside, even and calm. Victor stepped out of the shadows, dark coat, arms hanging loose. The light hit his face at an angle, sharpening its hard lines. Alex stepped forward by reflex, then stopped when Victor raised a hand. "One more step, and the girl dies faster." The sentence was light, like stating the obvious. Alex followed the direction of Victor's hand. Lily lay on a metal table, her small body swallowed by old tubes and machines. Her eyes were half open, her gaze unfocused. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Alex felt his throat tighten. "Lily," he called softly, as if afraid sound itself might break something. The child blinked, her lips moving, no words forming. Alex took another half step, then stopped. His hands trembled as they fell to his sides. "What do you want?" His voice cracked, unable to stay steady. Victor curled his mouth into a faint smile. "Not me," he said, glancing at the equipment around them. "Your data." The answer dropped onto the cold concrete. Alex shook his head very slightly, as if trying to convince himself. "I left that place," he said, each word heavy. I didn't touch anyone. Victor moved closer to Lily, his hand resting on the IV line. The system remembers you, he said, and someone wants to be sure of that. He pulled a syringe from his coat pocket, the liquid inside clear. Alex lunged forward on instinct. Victor raised his hand again, the movement small but decisive. Stay still, he said. This shot doesn't hurt. He slid the needle into the IV port and pressed slowly. It's just that her heart forgets how to beat. The words were light as air, but Alex felt them slam straight into his chest. Alex collapsed, both knees hitting the floor with a dry impact. He struck the concrete with his hand. Once, then again. She's 5 years old. His voice broke, his throat raw. Are you still human? Victor bent down, looking him straight in the eyes. I work under contract, he said evenly. The one paying is who you should be afraid of. Alex looked up, his eyes red, not from tears but from restrained rage. Who? He asked. Victor straightened and did not answer. He turned away a few steps, took an old clock hanging on the wall, and flipped the switch. The second hand began to move one notch at a time, the ticking clear in the space. Victor turned back, his gaze cold. 2 hours, he said. When it's up, it's over. Alex looked at the clock, then at Lily. She struggled to breathe, each breath seeming to be pulled from deep inside her chest. He crawled closer, stopping at the distance Victor allowed. I'm here, he said quietly, forcing calm. I'm here with you. Lily looked at him, her eyes wet, a tear spilling from the corner. Dad, she called, very softly. Alex reached out, then froze with his hands suspended in the air. Victor leaned against a table, arms crossed. You have 2 hours to decide, he said. Bring what they want, or watch the clock run. Alex turned to him. If I give it, he asked, you let her go? Victor tilted his head. I hand her back, he said. Alive or dead, that part isn't mine. Alex let out a short, hoarse laugh. You talk like you're not involved. Victor shrugged. I'm standing in the right place, he replied, between the money and the outcome. Alex looked around the room, old equipment labels surfacing under the lights. He recognized a few markings, projects that had been cut, piece by piece, slow and painful. He understood. They were not in a hurry. They needed him to bow. He looked back at Lily and saw her chest rising more slowly. He stood up, his legs shaking but holding. I need water, he said. Victor nodded and signaled to someone hidden in the shadows to bring it. Alex soaked a cloth, wiped Lily's lips, whispered broken sentences, words he had never thought he would have to say in a place like this. The clock ticked steadily. Each sound was a heartbeat pulled tight. Alex sat beside the table, his back straight, his eyes never leaving his child. Victor stood farther away, checking his phone, glancing at the clock now and then. No one spoke. Outside, the rain grew heavier again, drumming on the metal roof. Alex took a deep breath, his mind slowly settling. He saw no escape here. He saw a problem with its answer already written, and they were waiting for his confirmation. He looked at the clock again as the second hand passed another mark. Victor lifted his head and spoke slowly, clearly. 2 hours. The metal door at the outer side opened again, this time slowly and heavily. Elena stepped inside, her dark coat still holding rainwater, her shoes leaving wet marks on the concrete floor. The flickering fluorescent light swept across her face, revealing exhaustion she no longer bothered to hide. She took a few steps and then stopped. In front of her, Lily lay motionless on the metal table, her small body submerged among tubes and old machinery. Elena hesitated for a beat, very brief, but long enough for Alex to see it. Alex sprang to his feet. Everything inside him collapsed into a single burning point. He lunged forward, no longer keeping his distance. Before Victor could move, Alex grabbed Elena and shoved her to the floor. Her back hit hard, and the breath was knocked out of her. Alex's hand clenched her collar, trembling, but not releasing. Have you ever watched a child die slowly? His voice was hoarse and low, each word scraped out of his chest. Elena breathed hard, eyes wide, but she did not fight back. Her hands rested on his wrists, not to pry them loose, but as if to keep him from shaking too violently. Yes, she said, breath broken. My younger brother, same illness. The answer fell between them, bare, without evasion. Alex's grip stalled. The pressure on Elena's collar eased, but he did not let go yet. Silence stretched, heavy enough that the old machine in the corner could be heard whining from overload. Alex looked into Elena's eyes, searching for deceit, for a crack to continue his anger. He found none. Only another pain, older, carefully contained. He released her. Elena stayed still for another beat, then propped herself up on her elbow and sat up. She straightened her coat and drew in a deep breath to steady herself. Her gaze flicked toward Lily, then returned to Alex. "My father signed off on cutting the funding," she said, her voice steadier now. "Not for money," she paused, choosing words, "because he believed saving the system could still save more children." Alex let out a dry laugh, empty of relief. "And my child is the price," he said, his voice rough, each word heavy. Elena met his stare. "Yes," she replied, "and I didn't know another way that wouldn't kill more people." The sentence came slowly, weighed word by word, without pleading, without justification. Alex turned away, both hands clenched into fists. He walked toward Lily and stopped close to the metal table without touching it. Her chest rose very slowly. He placed a hand on the edge of the table, the cold seeping into his skin. "You knew we were there," he said, not turning back. "You tested me at the supermarket." Elena did not deny it. "I needed to be sure," she said, "that you still had it. It still did a zoo. And you brought all of them down on us." Alex turned back, his eyes sharp. "I didn't order the kidnapping," Elena answered immediately, "but I opened the door for it to happen." She looked down at the floor, then up again. "I thought I could control it." Alex shook his head. "Your system," he said. "It doesn't need you to think right." A clap echoed from farther inside, breaking the tension. Victor leaned against a pillar, his expression calm. "Finished catching up?" he asked, his tone lightly mocking. "The one paying me is waiting." Elena turned to him, her gaze turning cold. "Who?" she asked. Victor shrugged. "You already know." Elena stepped one pace toward Victor. "Stop," she said, her voice hard. Victor smiled faintly. "You said it yourself," he replied. "Too late." Alex looked between them, fitting the pieces together. "It's not just you," he said. "There's someone else." Elena did not argue. "Yes," she said, "and he won't stop without a bigger price." Alex looked at Lily again, then at Elena. "Price?" he asked. Elena did not answer immediately. She scanned the room, the old equipment, the abandoned project boards, the names of research programs that had once supported hundreds of families. "The truth," she said, "and everything that comes with it." "You'll lose everything," Alex said. Elena nodded. "I know," she replied, "but if I stay silent, your child dies." The sentence landed without emphasis. Victor shook his head and clicked his tongue. "Nice," he said, "but contracts don't rewrite themselves." Elena turned back to Alex. "You still have a copy," she said. "You know where you kept it." Alex remained still. "I didn't promise," he replied. "I don't trust you." Elena nodded. "You don't have to," she said. "You just have to decide." The ticking of the clock grew louder, as if turned up. The second hand slid past another mark. Alex looked at the clock, then at Lily. He felt himself pulled between two forces, both strong enough to tear him apart. Elena stood beside him, not touching, but close enough that he could feel her breathing. "None of us is innocent," she said, very softly. "It's only who stops first." Victor pulled out his phone and glanced at the screen. "Your time is running," he said to Alex. "And yours too." Elena turned to him. "If I go public," she said. Victor smiled. "Then you die," he replied, more slowly. Alex closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them. He looked at Lily, then at Elena. There were no allies here, only people forced to stand on the same side for a brief moment. He drew a deep breath, his voice low. "You came here to talk," he said. "Or to do something?" Elena answered immediately. "So, you don't kneel alone." Victor laughed, loud and dry. "Touching," he said, "but the one paying me doesn't care about touching." He stepped into the light, blocking the exit. "Decide," he said. "Time is running out." Alex looked at the clock once more. The second hand moved again. Elena stood straight, her eyes never leaving Lily. Alex realized something cold. They had all been crushed by the same structure, long before they ever stepped into this room. The lights in the factory shifted to a whiter tone, as if someone had just switched on an auxiliary power source. Darkness pulled back from the far end of the room, revealing a figure standing still, back straight, hands folded in front of his stomach. The man stepped forward slowly, leather shoes tapping softly against the damp concrete. His hair was almost completely gray, neatly combed, his face showing no sign of haste. His voice was low and even, carrying as if it had been prepared long in advance. "You still remember my son, don't you, Elena?" Elena froze, not from fear, but from recognizing the voice. a long-time partner, a name that always surfaced in closed-door meetings, in agreements that needed no minutes. "Marcus," she said, very softly, "you were compensated." The sentence came out by professional reflex, like a familiar line item. Marcus smiled sadly, wrinkles stretching from the corners of his eyes. "Compensation doesn't buy back a heartbeat," he replied, without lowering his voice, without emphasis. Alex looked at the man in front of him, trying to fit that face into everything that had just happened. Marcus turned to him, his gaze lingering longer than necessary. "Do you think you're special?" he asked, without mockery. "Your child is just a convenient example." The words dropped cold and clean, like a technical conclusion. Alex stepped forward on instinct, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Victor immediately blocked him. The gun barrel pressed close to Alex's chest. "Don't," he said, very briefly. Marcus raised a hand, signaling Victor to lower the gun slightly. "Let him hear," he said. "Hear it fully." He turned back to Elena. "You kept the company stable," he said, as if reading from a report. "You covered dirty decisions under the excuse of protecting the system." Elena did not deny it. "You were there too," she replied. "You signed those deals." Marcus nodded. "I signed," he said, "because I believed in what you believe." He paused and looked at Lily lying on the metal table. "Until my son died, no one spoke." The ticking of the clock grew clearer. Marcus continued, his voice dropping. "When a system decides who gets to live and who has to wait, it doesn't ask parents." He looked at Alex. "It asks data." Alex breathed hard, anger rising, and then clamped down at the sight of Lily. "You're using my child," he said, hoarse. Marcus nodded. "I'm using what she fears most," he said, turning to Elena. "And what you can't abandon." He turned back to Alex. "Both of you reacted exactly as predicted." Elena stepped forward one pace. "What do you want?" she asked. Marcus looked at her calmly. "I want to see it collapse," he replied. "Not for money." He shook his head. "Because I watched my child collapse first." He gestured around the factory. "This place once promised to save thousands of children," he said. "Then it was abandoned for bigger interests." Victor stood slightly off to the side, gun still in hand. Marcus turned to him. "Do it," he said, not raising his voice. "Kill them." He pointed one by one. "All three." He glanced around. "Then burn this place." The order came out straight, without emotion. Victor hesitated for a beat, very brief. He glanced at Elena, then at the clock. Elena saw that beat, a small gap, but enough to know this was the fracture point. She understood immediately. If she stayed silent, everyone would die. If she spoke, everything she had protected would fall apart. She inhaled deeply, her chest tightening. "You won't win," she said to Marcus. He raised an eyebrow. "I already have," he replied. "You're standing here." Elena reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled, but the movement was firm. "You don't win if I expose everything," she said. Marcus's eyes darkened for a very brief moment. Victor turned to look at Marcus, waiting for confirmation. Marcus raised a hand, signaling him to wait. "You think you still have time?" he asked. Elena met his gaze. "I think enough," she said. "Enough to pull everything down with me?" Alex looked at her, said nothing. He understood the cost. Marcus gave a thin smile. "You trust the press more than I trust a gun?" he asked. Elena shook her head. "I trust light," she replied. "It dirties everything." Marcus stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "You'll kill the company," he said. "You'll kill projects that are still alive." Elena did not step back. "If I stay silent, I kill his child," she replied. "And there will be another." The words landed heavy and direct. Victor glanced at the clock again. The second hand slid past another mark. "Give the order," he said to Marcus. Marcus looked at Victor, then at Elena. "You're really ready?" he asked. Elena nodded. "I've been ready since you used children," she replied. Marcus let out a long breath. "Then let's see," he said. He turned half away, as if preparing to leave the exchange. Victor raised the gun back into position. Alex tensed, bracing for the worst. Elena looked at Lily, then at her phone screen. Her finger hovered over the send button. No one spoke. The ticking of the clock filled the space. Elena lowered her voice, speaking just loudly enough for Marcus to hear. "You don't win if I expose everything," she repeated, this time slow and clear. Marcus turned back, his eyes meeting hers. A stretch of silence followed. Victor held position, the gun still aimed at Alex. Elena pressed the screen. Her finger trembled, but did not slip. Elena stood still in the middle of the room, the phone in her hand glowing with a cold light. A progress bar appeared, thin and long, beginning to crawl forward very slowly. She watched it like a living creature, each percent passing, carrying something being cut out of her life. The encrypted data package was split into multiple streams, sent in parallel to newsrooms, investigative agencies, and addresses she had prepared in advance. She did not breathe deeply, afraid her hand might slip, even though she knew it would change nothing. Marcus saw the progress bar. His face drained of color for a beat, then twisted into sudden rage. "You're insane!" The shout slammed into the concrete walls and echoed back dryly. Elena did not turn around. "No," she replied, her voice even, not raised. "I'm done." The words closed a door behind her. Somewhere in the system, Novatech's alarms began to sound. The tone was thin and sharp, then spread into a continuous cascade. Late, but real. Red warning lights blinked on old control panels throughout the factory, as if the abandoned place itself were being awakened. Alex felt the floor vibrate faintly under his feet. He glanced at Lily, then back at Elena. She was still staring at the progress bar, unmoving. Marcus stepped back once, then again. "You'll kill everyone," he said, his voice lower now, no longer shouting. "You'll kill what's still alive." Elena lowered the phone slightly, just enough to look straight at him. "If I stay silent, they die right now," she answered. "If I speak, they have a chance." The statement did not ask for mercy. Victor stood off to the left, the gun still aimed at Alex by habit. The alarms continued to blare. Victor looked at Marcus, then at Elena, then flicked his eyes to the progress bar. He saw one path closing and another opening in a violent way. He turned the gun toward Marcus, the motion firm but unhurried. Marcus froze. "You wouldn't dare," he said, quietly, as if testing. Victor did not respond. The progress bar slid past another marker. Elena felt her fingers go numb, but did not release the phone. Alex took half a step toward Lily, then stopped, afraid of triggering something. Victor pulled the trigger. The sound was short and dry, not for justice, but because there was no way back. The bullet tore through the air, struck metal, and threw sparks. Marcus flinched, staggered, twisted aside. The gunshot unleashed chaos. Another round went wide and slammed into an electrical panel, the factory shuddering. The fluorescent lights flickered violently. Alex lunged forward and dragged Elena aside by instinct, their backs hitting an old machine base. Elena faltered for a beat, then steadied herself. "The antidote is on the way," she said quickly, close to Alex's ear, her breath tight. "I prepared it." Alex looked at her and did not ask more. A fragile trust was tied to those words. Marcus screamed amid the alarms and the crashing metal. "No one escapes this," he shouted, his voice breaking, no longer controlled. His shape retreated into the smoke rising from the damaged panel. The sound of hurried footsteps faded down a rear corridor. Victor kept the gun in his hand, breathing heavily. He looked at Elena, then at Alex, then at Lily. The alarms still blared. The progress bar had not yet finished. Elena raised the phone again, her eyes locked on the screen. Each percent felt like a clean cut. She thought of meetings, reports, all the times she chose silence. Everything was being dragged into the light at once. Alex dropped to his knees beside Lily, checking her breathing, his hands shaking but precise. "I'm here," he said, loud enough for her to hear. Lily opened her eyes, her gaze blurred. Alex shielded her from dust and smoke. Victor stepped back, one pace, the gun lowering, not out of compassion, but because the situation had changed. The alarms grew louder, as if amplified. Elena felt the phone vibrate, confirmation messages from outside contacts beginning to return. The progress bar reached another mark. She closed her eyes for a very brief beat, then opened them. "Send," she whispered, as if confirming it to herself. Her finger touched the screen one final time. Another sound followed, the system's confirmation that the data transfer was complete. Elena exhaled, long and heavy. She did not smile. She did not cry. Her face was empty, as if she had accepted every consequence. Alex looked at her and saw something in her eyes that was gone, replaced by something hard and sharp. Victor shook his head and stepped back again. "It's done," he said, unclear who he was speaking to. The alarms began to slow, shifting into a steadier tone. Outside, distant sirens rose through the rain. Alex stood, scanning the room for an exit. Elena placed a hand on his arm. "Not yet," she said. "We have to wait." Alex looked back at Lily, then at Elena. How long? He asked. Elena shook her head. I don't know, she answered. But they're coming. She glanced toward the corridor where Marcus had disappeared. And others too. Victor looked down at the gun, then set it on the concrete floor. The sound of metal hitting the ground rang clearly. He raised his hands to chest height, not high, not low. I'm done, he said. The rest isn't mine. Elena looked at him and did not answer. Neither did Alex. The progress bar on the phone was gone, replaced by a stream of notifications. Elena turned off the screen and slipped the phone into her coat. I destroyed everything with my own hands, she said, without emphasis. There's no way back. Alex nodded very slightly. I just need my child to live, he replied. A small explosion sounded somewhere behind them, possibly old machinery overloading. The smoke thickened. Alex pulled Lily closer. Elena stood between them and the draft. The alarms continued, but the rhythm had changed, signaling a different state. From far away, engines grew louder. Alex looked toward the dark corridor where Marcus had vanished. He did not see him, but felt the shadow of the decision that had just been released. Elena looked the same way, unblinking. He won't stop, Alex said. Elena nodded. No, she replied, but he doesn't control the story anymore. Another tremor ran through the floor. Alex felt time stretch, as if everything were holding its breath. Elena rested her hand on the metal table beside Lily, feeling the cold. The antidote will come, she repeated, this time as if to herself. Alex glanced at the old wall clock, the second hand still moving, waiting for no one. Outside, sirens were closer now. Victor retreated to the wall and sat down, his back against the concrete, his breathing steadying. Elena stood straight, her coat dusty, her wet hair stuck to her forehead. Alex shielded Lily, his eyes never leaving her. Inside the old factory, the decision had been made, irreversible, and the consequences were arriving fast. Alex knelt close to the metal table, an old laptop set on a dented equipment crate. The casing was scratched, one corner taped over and yellowed with age. He opened the lid, the screen lighting up slowly, the cooling fan whining softly like a tired breath. His hands shook as he plugged the cable into the data port on the side of the old control panel, but his eyes were clear to the point of cold. I'm sorry, he said very softly, leaning toward Lily. I once left this behind. The words were not an apology, only a late admission. Code scrolled across the screen in familiar lines. Symbols he had written during long night shifts appeared. No longer theory, they were an entry point, a back door he had kept for emergencies, for moments when the system locked every door, according to procedure, now became the only thing still open. He typed slowly, deliberately, never letting his hands move faster than his thoughts. Every command was checked twice in his head before he pressed the key. Behind him, Elena stood between Alex and the dark open space of the room. She held no gun, gave no orders. She stood straight, feet planted, shoulders blocking most of his body. Flickering light cast her shadow on the wall, long and thin. This was the first time she was not the one making decisions, only someone standing in front of a bullet. She listened to every scrape of metal, every distant footstep echoing in the corridors. The old wall clock ticked louder, as if someone had turned up the volume. The minute hand passed a mark, and the second hand did not stop. Alex glanced up, then looked at Lily. The child's breathing was broken, her chest rising slowly and unevenly. Every inhale and exhale tightened his throat. He placed one hand on the edge of the table, keeping himself from leaning too far toward her, a boundary Victor had set earlier. Victor was no longer there. Victor sat slumped against the far wall, his back sliding down inch by inch. Blood soaked through his shirt and spread across the concrete in a dark stain. He let out a rasping laugh, broken and incomplete. I was just finishing the job, he said, breathing heavy. Alex did not turn around. His fingers moved a notch faster, but not wildly. Finishing the job is killing my child? He shouted, his voice cracking, uncontained. Victor fell silent. The laughter stopped, leaving only rough breathing. Elena tilted her head, catching the sound of sirens fading and then drawing closer. Police were in the area. Radio chatter leaked through the walls, mixed with the remaining alarm tones. She gestured for Alex to continue. No encouragement, only a shared rhythm of breath. Alex stared at the screen as a warning window popped up. The system responded, slow but real. He switched to a fallback protocol, something he had written and forgotten. now returning like muscle memory. A countdown timer appeared on the secondary display of the monitoring device. 3 minutes. The red numbers did not blink, standing still like an order. Alex swallowed hard and kept typing. He rerouted paths, detached locked modules, and forced the system to accept temporary access rights. Sweat ran down his temples and dripped onto the keyboard. He did not wipe it away. A gunshot echoed somewhere farther off, then fell silent. Elena shifted slightly, covering another angle for Alex. A chunk of concrete dropped and shattered on the floor. She did not retreat. Her eyes stayed fixed on the corridor, where smoke still hung. She thought of the decisions that had brought her here, and the decisions being stripped from her hands, second by second. 2 minutes. Alex moved to the experimental drug console. Old data surfaced, project names, dosages, and warnings crossed out. He located the exact variant, the exact batch that had been cut. His hand paused for a beat. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not sure whether he was speaking to Lily or himself. He triggered the emergency logistics release, sending coordinates to the local medical system. A response came back slowly. Then a confirmation appeared. Victor coughed, his head drooping, then lifting again. "You think you've won?" he asked weakly. Alex did not answer. He looked at Lily and saw her lips growing paler. He sped up, but did not exceed the safety limits he had set for himself. One mistake here would end everything. 1 minute. Police forced the outer door, metal crashing loudly. Elena turned, raised both hands, and shouted a short sentence clear enough to cut through the noise. Alex did not hear every word, but he knew she was buying him time. He looked at the clock again, then at the final command line. The system signaled ready to receive the antidote. The sound of an ambulance siren pierced thick walls, near and far, then stopped abruptly. Alex heard large doors thrown open, running footsteps. He pressed enter one last time, then pulled the cable free. The screen went dark, and the cooling fan stopped. He jumped to his feet and rushed toward Lily, then halted as a doctor stepped in. The doctor moved fast and precisely. A syringe was already prepared, the antidote clear in the small vial. The wall clock hit its mark, the second hand just crossing the line. The doctor injected directly into the IV without hesitation. Alex stood inches away, his hands clenched into invisible fists, nails digging into his skin. The monitor froze for a beat so long Alex thought he had imagined it. The heart line flattened, then lifted slightly. One beat, then another. The numbers stabilized, slow and steady. Alex exhaled hard and dropped to his knees. He did not cry. He lowered his forehead beside the table and whispered, very softly, "She's breathing." Night had settled deep. The hospital was quiet, footsteps scarce, leaving only the familiar sounds of machines and carts rolling farther away until they faded out completely. White lights hung along the hallway, laying an even, cold brightness across the floor, enough to make every movement feel slower to those who remained. Alex sat close to the edge of the bed, his back slightly curved. His shoulders dropped as if he had just set down a burden carried for many years. His hand rested on Lily's chest, just below her collarbone, feeling each rise and fall, slow and steady. He counted in his head, not to check, but to keep himself inside this moment, as if letting his mind drift might make the rhythm slip away. The monitor beside the bed emitted its steady sound, a pale green line rising and falling, repeating. Lily slept peacefully, lashes closed, her face less pale, her breathing thin but stable. Alex leaned closer, studying her for a long time, as if trying to memorize every detail. He was afraid to touch too firmly, afraid to break the fragile state that had just been preserved by decisions taken too far to undo. Each small beep from the machine made his chest flinch by reflex. A nurse entered and stopped at the foot of the bed, movements practiced and light. She lowered her voice so only Alex could hear. "She's out of danger now?" Alex nodded, a small nod. His eyes were red but dry, no tears. She adjusted the IV line, looked at Lily for another beat, then left, returning the room to steady light and even sound. Outside the room, Elena leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She looked through the glass and saw Alex bent close to the child, his hand on Lily's chest like an anchor holding her there. The sight held her for a beat, long enough to realize something had changed, not in him, but in herself. Elena turned away. She did not enter the room. The long hallway led her toward the elevator, the lights stretching along each step, reflecting off shoes still marked with dust and rain. The elevator doors opened, then closed. Elena watched her reflection in the dull metal, a tired face, hair still wet. When the doors opened again on the ground floor, noise rushed in. Night air carried the smell of rain and voices. Camera flashes fired in bursts of white. Microphones were thrust forward from every side, questions overlapping, relentless. Elena stepped out alone, not stopping, not shielding her face. The light clung to her, exposing every line she no longer hid. She did not answer. She walked straight ahead, her expression flat, as if moving along a path already drawn. A legal manager stayed close at her side, speaking quickly and low. Elena heard, but did not respond. She knew that from this moment, the CEO's chair had already left her hands. No announcement was needed, no vote required. The data was out, and the story had changed owners. She got into the car, the door closed, the flashes stopped outside. Inside, the space was quieter, with only rain tapping against the windows. In the hospital room, Alex pulled the chair closer and sat lower, level with Lily. He whispered a few broken sentences, words he had never practiced, coming out in time with her breathing. He thought about the past hours, the forced turns, the moments when his hands shook but still hit the right keys. The steady machine sounds pulled him back to the present. He rested his forehead against the bed rail, inhaled deeply, then exhaled slowly, as if relearning how to breathe. The phone in his pocket vibrated. Alex froze for a beat, his body reacting before his thoughts. He pulled the phone out and looked at the screen. An incoming call, unknown number. He glanced at Lily, then answered, lowering his voice. "Hello," is start in the door dover. The man's voice on the other end was distorted, familiar in a way that sent a chill up his spine. "Alex?" The voice paused, then continued, "It's your brother." Alex stood still, eyes fixed on Lily. "Brother?" he asked, hoarse. On the other end, a faint laugh, joyless. "It's been a while." The voice was slow, clear. "You thought it was only Marcus and Elena's father?" Alex did not respond. He watched the heart rate line on the monitor, listened to the steady beeps. The line went silent for a few seconds. Then, the call ended. Alex lowered the phone, his hand tightening. An old memory surfaced. A call 3 years earlier, a distorted voice, a brief warning. The connection appeared late, snapping into the last space. Elsewhere in the city, Elena sat in a temporary office, yellow light casting onto bare walls. She removed her coat, set it on a chair, and took a long breath. The phone on the desk vibrated. Unknown number. Elena paused for a beat, then picked up. "Elena." The man's voice came through. Same cadence, same pauses. "We once sat at the same table." Elena stiffened, her grip tightening. "Who are you?" she asked. The voice answered slowly. "Someone who knew before you did." Then the sentence repeated, like setting a link in place. "You thought it was only Marcus and your father?" Elena ended the call and stood still. She looked out the window at the city spread below, scattered lights. She understood another layer had just been added to the picture, and that layer had no clear edges. She thought of Lily, of Alex, of the data now exposed. Consequences were running beyond anyone's control. Back in the hospital room, Alex set the phone down on the table. He turned back to Lily, his hand returning to its place on her chest. The heartbeat was steady. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them. Outside, the sound of an ambulance faded into the distance. Inside the room, there was only the monitor's steady rhythm, a life held in place, and the sense that the truth had only begun to reveal itself. This story begins with a very small action, $50 at a supermarket checkout, but it ends with questions far larger than that. It shows that in a world where data, power, and systems operate coldly, the weakest are often the first to pay the price. Alex is not a hero, and Elena is not a purely evil villain. They are people trapped between survival choices and moral responsibility, where every decision leaves consequences that cannot be erased. The lesson here is not only about kindness or sacrifice, but about the cost of silence. When wrongdoing is covered up in the name of stability or the greater good, the victims do not disappear. They are only pushed out of sight. The story reminds us that every system is created by humans, and when humans choose to turn away, that system will crush the very people it once promised to protect. Ask yourself, in our own lives, how many times have we stayed silent in the face of something wrong simply because it had not touched us yet? If this story made you think, share it so more people can reflect on it together. Thank you for following until the end. We are committed to bringing you the most thoughtful and meaningful content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more stories that inspire reflection.